Well, welcome in to a new week and a new season. It's January 20th. Thomas Miller in the Fun Astrology podcast audio booth, welcoming something. Whenever you say January 20th, something should just come to mind right away. What is the very first thing you think of when you think of January 20th, 2020? If you said Martin Luther King Day, I'm going to say that's a great guess, but it's wrong, because the sun moves into Aquarius. We finally got the sun out of Capricorn. That was a good transit. That was a very historic transit of the sun through Capricorn. But now we get to breathe some air, an air sign, and we'll talk about Aquarius here in just a second. Before we roll on, I wanted to thank you guys so much for the reviews that I've been seeing on iTunes and other places. If your podcast carrier that you like to listen to podcasts on allows for reviews, would you mind just exchanging a little value and leaving a review? I am so excited, and I just am so grateful. You guys are touching my heart so much, because some of the things that you are saying are the exact intentions of why I started doing this podcast. And that was to give you just a little, to just provide a little morning inspiration of what the day might look like from astrological energy, so that, if you wanted to, you could plug into it or at least be alert for it. And then we can all learn something as we follow each day through the chart about astrology. So the podcast has really been moving up. We're in the top tier now of the astrology keyword search on iTunes, and really bumping toward the top up there, and your reviews help so much. So I would just greatly appreciate it. And thank you for those of you who have left them. All right, before we talk about the sun in Aquarius, let's talk about a couple of aspects that the moon and Mars are making from their Sagittarian perch. If we look at, mid-morning, let's say this morning, the moon will be at about 8 degrees Sagittarius, Mars at 11, and that's throwing squares to Pisces, where Venus is closing in on its conjunction with Neptune. So we have both. I think you could say both are aspected with squares with both. So you've got the moon and Mars squaring Venus and Neptune. Some people might challenge me on one of those aspects maybe, but that's okay. It's not your podcast. All right, so we're just going to catch them all, because the moon will move fast enough that if you're going to argue about that, then we will close the gap by the end of the day. So around your relationship, you had some great aspects over the weekend. Hopefully you breathed that air. Today it could be a little punchier. So I'm saying just watch for those triggers. That would be the thing. Watch for those triggers around your relationship. And that could be your partner, or it could be relationship with your coworkers or your boss or your kids. Just relationship category in general. Keep an eye out. The other thing that I'm just watching with this is how we deal with these things that Saturn-Pluto still is bringing up. Are you kidding? Are we out of this? Oh, no way. We'll be talking about this all year. But the moon and Mars triggering Venus and Neptune, that brings this spiritual dynamic to kind of a little bit of a flashpoint. So some things could be revealed, or some things could be triggered. So keep your alertness attuned for those through the day today. Now, let's just talk about the sun moving into Aquarius here just briefly. So it happens this morning. Let's see here. I got to get my iPad turned over. 9:48 a.m. 9:48 is when the exact point is. That begins Aquarius season. This is a sign that I happen to know fairly well. My mom was an Aquarius, and then ironically, her sister was born 6 years later on the same day. My daughter is also an Aquarian. So I'm fairly familiar with the sign of the water bearer, and we'll unpack it like we kind of do here. I don't want to take up too much of your time today, but let's get things started anyway, and then we can embellish it as the week goes on, talking about other Aquarian attributes. So the ancient ruler of Aquarius is Saturn. Now, that's a little bit ironic because didn't we just move out of a sign that's ruled by Saturn, i.e. Capricorn? Yes, we did. And this right here is the only place where the same planet rules the next sign. Now, that's the ancient astrology rulership. Modern rulership is Uranus. In fact, Uranus has so many of the same characteristics as Aquarius. One of the things you don't want to do, Steve Forrest drilled this in when I narrated the Book of Fire audiobook, drilled this point in, is don't paint the sign and the planet ruling it with the same brush. They each have their own unique characteristics that need to be explored and brought out. But in this one, Aquarius and Uranus are really kissing cousins. So Aquarius is a fixed air sign. If you would like a keyword for Aquarius, it would be this: don't tell me what to do. That's a little more than one, but that is an Aquarian. And I will tell you, we can embellish a lot more. They are smart. They are on the cutting edge. They love technology. They are disruptive from a standpoint of they will affect change. They are not beating to the same drum as everybody else. They do not do things status quo. They are fun, smart, researchers, diligent. They can be a little airy, but the world would be a boring resemblance of its last self if it weren't for the sign of Aquarius. So in everything that's going on right now in the macro with Saturn, Pluto, and Capricorn, and this shift that is coming, we're going to be talking about Aquarius in depth a lot over the next months, years, and decades. And oh, by the way, do you remember the song? It's, a copyright violation if I put it on here. And I know that's kind of crazy, but, you can look it up on YouTube. Play The Fifth Dimension, Age of Aquarius, because we are in the dawning of the age of Aquarius. In fact, I've seen some posts online about when does the age of Aquarius begin? 9:48 this morning? No, that's not. We'll talk about that later in the week, too. We've got a lot to discuss as we bring in Aquarius season 2020. And you ain't seen nothing yet. We're just getting started. All right, you have a great Monday, and I will talk to you tomorrow.